This free step-by-step video comes to you directly from Haynes. You can complete more than 200 jobs on this vehicle when you purchase the complete Haynes online manual at haynes.com.
Timing belt renewal. Pull the plastic cover upwards to release the mountings. Removal. Using the tool provided, remove the centre cap from the wheel. Where necessary, use the locking wheel bolt adapter and slacken each of the wheel bolts half a turn. Position the workshop jack adjacent to the jacking point indicated by a triangular notch in the sill. Raise the vehicle until the tyre is clear of the ground, then place an axle stand under the sill flange at the jacking point. Remove the jack. Fully unscrew the bolts and remove the wheel. Rotate the tensioner clockwise, then lock it in place using a suitable pin, drill bit or Allen key. If the belt is to be refitted, mark its original direction of rotation. Engine under tray. Remove the single screw at the front edge of the under tray. Undo the torque screws along the outer edges and the screws at the rear. Slide the under tray rearwards and remove it. Battery negative lead disconnection and reconnection. Release the clip, remove the battery cover and terminal cover, then slacken the nut and pull the negative lead clamp from the battery terminal. Position the clamp to one side to prevent accidental reconnection. It's also advisable to insulate the battery terminal to prevent accidental reconnection. Unscrew the 4 bolts securing the crankshaft pulley. Prevent any rotation by counter-holding the hub bolt with a socket. Remove the pulley from the crankshaft hub. Unclip the coolant hoses above the timing belt cover. Disconnect the wiring plug, undo the retaining bolt, and move the diesel particulate filter pressure differential sensor to one side. Undo the bolt and remove the screen wash fluid reservoir filler neck. Slide up and remove the hose clip. Undo the bolts securing the fuel pump bracket. Disconnect the fuel pump wiring plug. Release the pipe bracket from the fuel filter. Undo the bolts securing the fuel filter. Then move the filter and pump to one side. Disconnect the coolant sensor wiring plug. Undo the bolt under the engine mounting bracket and the nut securing the coolant pipe. Disconnect the wiring plug from the coolant expansion tank level sensor, then unclip the wiring loom, undo the bolts and move the tank to one side. There's no need to disconnect the coolant hose. Support the engine from below. Then undo the bolts and remove the engine mounting brace. Slacken the bolts securing the engine mounting to the bracket and the mounting to body bolts. Remove the mounting along with the bolts. Release the 3 clips and remove the timing belt upper cover. Lower the engine slightly, then remove the bracket lower bolt and slacken the rear bolt. It's not possible to remove the bolt at this stage. Remove the bracket front bolt, then remove the rear bolt and the bracket. Unlock the auxiliary belt tensioner and allow it to unwind. Undo the full bolts accessible from the wheel arch. Then undo the upper bolt and remove the timing belt lower cover. Rotate the crankshaft clockwise as necessary and fit the special locking and aligning tool. When the crankshaft is correctly positioned, the mark on the sprocket aligns with the mark on the special tool, and the locating pin engages with the hole in the oil seal housing. In this position, it should be possible to insert a 6mm diameter rod or locking tool through the hole in the camshaft hub and into the hole in the cylinder head. Counterhold the sprocket, then slacken the retaining bolts 1/4 turn each. Note that new bolts will be required upon reassembly. Slacken each of the fuel pump sprocket bolts 1/4 turn each. Note that new bolts will be required upon reassembly. Using a hex or Allen key to hold the tensioner, slacken the nut, rotate the tensioner anti-clockwise and lock it in place with a 2mm diameter pin or drill bit. Lightly tighten the nut to secure the tensioner. Remove the belt from the various sprockets and pulleys. Unlock the tensioner, undo the retaining nut and remove it. We recommend that a new tensioner is fitted whenever the belt is renewed. Refitting. Locate the new tensioner over the stud and slide it into place, ensuring that the lug at the rear of the tensioner hub engages with the slot in the cylinder block. Fit the new nut, rotate the tensioner clockwise, insert the locking pin, then lightly tighten the retaining nut. Replace the camshaft sprocket bolts, but don't tighten them at this stage. The sprocket must be free to rotate. Replace the fuel pump sprocket bolts, but again, don't tighten them at this stage. Rotate the fuel pump sprocket hub clockwise until the lug aligns with the hole in the bracket. Insert a 6mm rod or drill bit to lock it in place. Rotate the sprocket clockwise so the retaining bolts are at the end of the slots. Likewise, rotate the camshaft sprocket clockwise so the bolts are at the end of the slots. Maneuver the new timing belt into place, around the crankshaft sprocket, camshaft sprocket, tensioner, coolant pump sprocket, large idler, and fuel pump sprocket. Finally, fit the belt around the idler roller. Ensure that any slack in the belt is in the section of belt that passes over the tensioner roller. Slacken the tensioner retaining nut and pull out the tensioner locking pin. Turn the tensioner clockwise until the pointer is just past the middle of the gap in the tensioner base plate. With the tensioner held in this position, tighten the securing nut to the specified torque and angle. Counterholding the camshaft sprocket, tighten the bolts to the initial torque setting. Likewise, tighten the fuel pump sprocket to the initial torque setting. Remove the fuel pump and camshaft sprocket locking bolts. Remove the crankshaft locking tool, then rotate the crankshaft 2 complete revolutions clockwise and refit the locking tool. Check that the tensioner roller indicator arm is centered or within a maximum of 5mm to the right of the notch in the base plate. If not, hold the tensioner hub stationary with an Allen key, slacken the retaining nut and position the arm in the center of the notch. Tighten the retaining nut to the specified torque. Remove the Allen key. Check that the camshaft sprocket locking pin can still be inserted. It's very difficult to align the locking pin of the fuel pump hub again. However, a slight misalignment of holes will not affect engine performance. Counterhold the camshaft sprocket and angle tighten the retaining bolts. Refit the timing belt lower cover and tighten the bolt to the specified torque. Refit the crankshaft pulley. Insert the new bolts. Tighten them to the specified torque and angle. Maneuver the mounting bracket into place and insert the new upper bolts. Tighten the front upper bolt to the specified torque. Insert the bracket's new lower bolt and tighten it to the specified torque. Likewise, insert the bracket new rear bolt and tighten it to the specified torque. Maneuver the timing belt upper cover into place and secure it with the clips. If required, lower the engine slightly, then refit the engine mounting and brace. Insert the new bolts and tighten them to the specified torque. Tighten the brace bolt securely. Align the engine bracket with the mounting, then insert the new bolts. Tighten the mounting bolts to the specified torque. There must be at least 13.5 millimeters between the engine mounting bracket and the right-hand side chassis member. Refit and tighten the coolant pipe bracket bolt. Locate the bracket over the stud and tighten the nut securely. Reconnect the temperature sensor wiring plug. Maneuver the coolant expansion tank back into place, then tighten the retaining bolts. Clip the wiring loom into place and reconnect the level sensor wiring plug. Refit the fuel filter and tighten the bolts. Refit the fuel pump and tighten the bolts. Reconnect the washer fluid filler neck and secure it with the bolt. Secure the diesel particulate filter differential pressure sensor with the bolts and reconnect the wiring plug. Maneuver the under tray into position, then slide it forwards to engage with the front panel. Refit, then tighten the screws at the rear edge. Outer edges. And the single screw at the front. Fit the new belt around the alternator and air conditioning compressor pulleys, then around the crankshaft pulley grooves and the tensioner pulley. Check the belt ribs locate correctly in the pulley grooves. Hold the tensioner and unlock it. Slowly release the tensioner and allow it to rest against the belt. Apply a little high temperature grease to the hub centre. Locate the wheel over the hub, align the holes, then insert the bolts and lightly tighten them. Raise the vehicle, remove the axle stand, then lower it to the ground. Tighten the bolts to the specified torque. Don't forget to refit the centre cap. Press the negative lead clamp down over the battery negative terminal, then tighten the retaining nut securely. Where applicable, refit the terminal cover, then refit the battery cover. Align the cover with its mountings and press it firmly down into place.